My name is Kathleen Knoll, and I'm the Director of Youth Programs with the World Affairs Council of Pittsburgh, and I've been with the World Affairs Council for about 6 years now. But the Council has been partnering to provide the Global Travel Scholars Program for about 17 years now, so it certainly predates my time with the Council, and since then we've sent over 150 students abroad. So tonight we're going to go through what is the scholarship and what's the process for applying. So before we jump into all of that, just to introduce the World Affairs Council of Pittsburgh, if you're not familiar, we're an organization that convenes and connects people around global issues in order to build a thriving, competitive, and inclusive Pittsburgh. And ultimately, our vision for our work is to create a globally minded and globally connected world that is equitable and just for all. As a council, we have a variety of community programs that you can attend throughout the years. And then we also have a variety of by youth for youth programs and educator programs that we also put on with local high schools in the Southwestern Pennsylvania region. And I encourage you to visit our website to learn more about all of the different programs that we offer beyond just the Global Travel Scholars Program. So tonight I'm joined by some of my colleagues. Sean Remming is our youth programming coordinator, and Lauren Schola is our operations coordinator. They both help to facilitate the Global Travel Scholars Program. You'll probably receive a lot of emails from them throughout the process. So just to be familiar with them and those names, and I'll share contact information at the end of the presentation. And the council also works in close partnership on the Global Travel Scholars Program with the experiment team. And tonight we're joined by Angie Free, who is going to also present from the experiment side. So we are actually two separate organizations. I think sometimes students in this process who don't work with the council in other ways think that we're one organization because they hear from us quite often in tandem, but we are actually two organizations that partner to provide these programs. So the council, which is an organization based here in Pittsburgh, we provide support to the students and the family around their application, their passport and visa application process, and their paperwork in order to be able to travel abroad. We also do the actual selection of the Global Travel Scholars, and Angie participates in that process as well from the experiment side. And then the council provides wraparound programming. So before our Global Travel Scholars travel abroad, we do 3 pre-departure orientations with students to help them to prepare for their travel abroad. What can they expect? What should they pack? And how can they just be sort of mentally and physically ready for the experience that they're going to go through during their time abroad? And then when they come back, students also have to participate in continued programming through storytelling and group projects. And our experiment team, they host the application through their application portal on their website. They set up all of the program logistics. They do a program-specific pre-departure orientation. They are the on-the-ground program provider, so they actually coordinate the teams that travel with the students and plan the agendas and itineraries that the students follow while they're on program. And they also provide 24/7 on-call support during programs. There's more beyond that both organizations do, but that's sort of like a quick summary or snapshot of some of those main tasks that both teams are doing during this process. So the Global Travel Scholarship is a needs-based scholarship. It's for high school students who have never traveled abroad before and would not be able to do so without the scholarship. I'll put this asterisk next to the never traveled abroad before piece, which is that if a student is an immigrant or a refugee and was born and lived abroad, or maybe has had to travel back to visit family, that sometimes there are exceptions to this. So for any of this, if you have questions that are specific to your case or circumstances and you want to know if you're eligible, please reach out to us in advance and we'll assess your case individually. The Global Travel Scholarship covers the passport and visa fees that students might need to travel. It covers all flights, so the domestic flight and international flights for the program. It covers the program expenses, so all of the program activities, as well as college credit where that's applicable. It includes student meals and accommodations while on the program. It includes all transportation in the country once a student's there. So really the only transportation that's not included would be getting your student to the airport. It also includes any experiment fees, and it also includes health and accident insurance that the students might need while traveling. In order to be eligible to apply for the Global Travel Scholars Program, students need to be in grade 10 or 11. So that means they have to be 16 plus as of February 1st, 2023. High school seniors, current high school seniors, are not eligible to apply. Students must live in the Pittsburgh area, so really the southwestern Pennsylvania area, or be an active member of a Global Minds chapter. Students cannot have traveled outside of the US or Canada previously, except for in the case of immigrant or refugee students who live abroad. And again, if you have questions about things that might be an exception, please reach out. And students can only apply if they would not be able to travel abroad without a scholarship, which means this is a financial needs-based scholarship. So if students would be able to afford to travel abroad without the scholarship, then they should not apply. They would not qualify. And additionally, students have to be fully vaccinated for COVID-19 in order to be able to travel. The scholarship does not cover a few things. It doesn't cover any immunizations that a student might need for their trip. It won't cover any telephone charges or your phone plan for international calls, though we do talk during the pre-departure orientation about ways that the students can use their phone and turn off their plans and use Wi-Fi or other things while they're on their programs. It wouldn't include anything around internet charges for a student while they're abroad, their laundry expenses, any gifts or souvenirs or tips that the students want to get or need to provide while they're traveling. And it also wouldn't include anything like snacks or any extras that the student wants to buy in the country. We estimate that most students want to bring around $200 to $600, depending on the country and the cost of living in that country. And if selected, we do talk about the ways that students might be able to fundraise prior to their trip in order to raise that money if that's something that feels like a hardship to provide. This year, there are going to be 11 different program choices taking place in 9 countries. So they're listed here: Ecuador, France, Germany, Ghana, Italy, 2 programs in Japan, Jordan, South Korea, and 2 programs in Spain. You'll see that each program has a different theme that the students explore while on program. Each of these programs have a basic 4-part program structure, and Angie will talk a little bit more about this, I'm sure, in her presentation. She's the expert in this area, but all of them provide an orientation for the students about the country that they're traveling in. Typically, programs include a homestay family. I know this past year there were some disruptions to the homestay family component because of COVID, but I think that the experiment team is working to address that. So that's a typical but not always promised component of the programs. There is always a thematic focus, as I mentioned before, and then students also do a reflection as part of their experience. Most programs are going to take place during the month of July, so usually from the very 1st of July or close to it to the very end of July. Students travel in a group. So there is, I believe, somewhere between 10 and 15 students that typically travel in a group, along with 2 group leaders. They stay with that group at all times during their travel experience. And those students are coming from all over the US, and I think even outside of the US at times, to participate in the programs. Students have to commit to participating in the full program, so these dates are fixed. So once you know the dates of your program, it's not possible for students to join the group late or leave early. If the student is going to accept their selection as a global travel scholar, they have to commit to participating in the full program. And you can explore the programs and the specific travel dates on the experiment website. So the link is shared there at the bottom, and I'll ask that Lauren or Sean also share that in the chat so you can just click on it to join. And you'll see a lot of information there on the website about each of those programs and their thematic focuses, what they offer, and the travel dates. If you're applying for the Global Travel Scholars Program, applications are due by Friday, January 20th at 5 p.m. And you apply directly through the Experiment website. So it's www.experiment.org/apply. The application is pretty extensive, and it's a very important component in being selected for the Global Travel Scholars Program, because it's really one of two places where we get to know who the students are and why they would benefit from this opportunity. So students can apply through the experiment, and then a select number of students get selected to participate in an interview, and then scholars are actually selected from those students who interview. So this application is your chance to get an interview, so you want to make a good first impression and really provide a complete picture in your application. Each application includes an opportunity to share personal information, to share information for the parent or guardian. And I'll just note that on the application, the primary parent or guardian will be the adult point of contact that is contacted throughout the process. On the application, students also do a program selection, so they get to rank their top programs of interest. Students have to submit some short answer essays that really talk about and describe why the student benefits from the program, how they would not be able to participate in a program like this without the scholarship, et cetera. So the essays are really important, and I'm going to talk a bit more about those in a minute. Students are also required to submit a letter, or in some cases, letters of reference. Those cannot be written by a family member. And we encourage students that when you're starting the application, that you reach out to your references and request those references as soon as possible, so that you give them plenty of time to write the letter. Don't wait on that until the last step. There's also a financial aid form that has to be completed. That financial aid form is pretty involved, so I'd also encourage students to make sure to start getting their parents' involvement in that financial aid form early on in completing their application process. And then there's also a homestay letter. So the homestay letter, if a student is selected as a global travel scholar, is actually given to the family that the student would stay in. It's their way to introduce themselves to the family they might stay in during part of the trip. And the homestays vary in length. That's usually a question that comes up. But it's requested that students write those letters in English to introduce themselves, what they like, where they go to school, what their daily life and routine might be like. But some programs do have a foreign language requirement, and in which case your letter would need to be written in English and in the language of your host. All right, so a little bit about the essays. My first tip is to copy those essay prompts, those short answer essay prompts, into a Google Doc or a Word doc, and to draft them separately until you can finalize them, and then to copy them back into the application once they're finished. Again, this is your opportunity to share with us why you're interested in being a global travel scholar and how this opportunity would be transformative to you. So make sure that your answers are compelling and complete. There are some additional questions. There is an additional question for programs with college credit, and those are open to juniors, rising juniors and seniors only. I would encourage you to have somebody read your essay and give you some feedback before you submit them. You'll want to answer in complete sentences. Be descriptive and tell your story. What makes you unique? How would you uniquely benefit from this program? How does it connect to your future goals? Those are the types of things that we really want to hear. And make sure that you are proofreading for spelling and grammar mistakes and that you're not leaving information out. When you're thinking about which programs you might be interested in listing as your top choices, and again, I'm linking there the Experiment website where you can find all of the information about the programs. Be sure to check out the program descriptions, the travel dates, any language prerequisites that are required to be a participant in that program. You'll also find there's a sample itinerary of what you would do on that trip. And you can learn more about the group leaders that travel with the students there as well for each program. So pick a program or programs that are connected to your interest and your future goals and talents. You should independently research these countries of interest to learn a little bit more about them and if they would be a good fit and why you're most interested in them. And please just remember that your choices are preferences, but are not a final selection and are subject to change. So we really encourage you to be flexible and to think about this as an opportunity to travel abroad generally, even if you don't get your top choice program. So essentially, students list their top choices that they're most interested in, but ultimately when the council and the experiment team do select our scholars, we make them an offer to a very specific program country. And we do certainly take into consideration the interest of the students. And also during the interview process, we'll ask students about why they made the choices they did. And then we rely heavily on the experiment team and the information that you all provide to think about what might be the most meaningful program for the students, as well as the availability of spaces on those programs. And some other factors, such as how many other students are also interested in that program, because we like to make sure that we don't send all of our global travel scholars in the same group on the same program. So we tend to only send one and at a maximum 2 students to any given program. So again, I'm just going to reiterate that these program selections are not final. They're your preference, and we'll ask you to describe them and talk more about them during the interview, but they're subject to change, and we do encourage flexibility. So when you accept a position to be a global travel scholar, you're accepting that you'll travel abroad, but that you may not be traveling to the country that you initially selected. So the application and interview timeline, again, you apply through the experiment, and the experiment application is due by January 20th. I'm going to change this. The passport application is due by February 10th, and I have that on a later slide. So that's a typo there. There's a small number of students that may be selected as alternates who would replace any student that may not be able to travel abroad for any reason. And the council will also pay for these alternates to apply for their passports, even if they don't ultimately travel abroad as a global travel scholar. Keep in mind that passports, adult passports, if you're 16 and over, are good for a 10-year period. So it's still a great benefit to have a passport and may enable you to travel at a later time. Interviews will either be held on Saturday, January 28th or February 4th. We'll announce that date, the final date that's selected early in January. These will likely be in-person interviews, except Angie will join us virtually unless there's bad weather, and then we'll sort of have a contingency plan to do virtual, but we'd like to be able to meet you all in person if you're selected for an interview. So we'll also announce the location and share that information early next year. And then we'll make our final selection of scholars in early February. If a student is selected to be a global travel scholar, there are some expectations that we have of those students. We expect them to be mature and reliable. So if a student is going to be able to travel abroad, we're looking for leadership qualities, and we want students who can demonstrate their readiness to travel and live abroad independently. By independently, I don't mean of the group, I mean of their parents and their family and some of their general support systems. So we really want to see a lot of maturity, follow through, and reliability from these students. We expect that students are going to communicate in a timely manner. We communicate primarily to the students and copy parents on emails and other forms of communications. And there are some exceptions to that, certainly when we need to contact a parent directly. But we're expecting students to be able to participate in this process and to be the primary communicator. And just know that we're here to support you. So as you run into issues or are working on different deadlines or forms that need to be completed, the council team, the experiment team are able to support you in that, but we do expect you to reach out in a timely manner to receive that support so that we can make sure that you are successful in this process. Our primary mode mode of communication is typically email, and we ask that you be responsive within 48 hours to any email that is sent. We also encourage you to provide an email address that you check most frequently. And for students especially, we encourage you to use a personal email account, as sometimes school emails will block emails from outside senders. So it's important that you're receiving our emails, that you're checking emails, and that you're being responsive to those. We also expect our global travel scholars to be ambassadors for the council, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, and to attend meetings associated with the scholarship, including a series of pre-departure orientations that prepare you for the travel abroad experience. So pre-travel, there are a lot of sort of forms and logistics that have to be completed that allow the students to be able to travel abroad. If you accept a position as a global travel scholar, you must commit to meeting these deadlines in order to be able to travel abroad. And some of this is because you have to get your passports returned in time, or visas returned in time, or there's other health forms that have to be approved in this process. So these deadlines are super important, and you can't wait until the last minute to start these things. They have to be started well in advance so that you meet these deadlines. And if you run into any issues, that you're communicating with us. So please know that these deadlines are serious and important, and we are very much here to help and support you in this process, but we do expect a lot of leadership in completing these activities. So within 2 days of receiving an email to notify you that you have been selected as a global travel scholar, there are 2 council forms that need to be returned. One is an acceptance of the scholarship, and one is a liability and media release. Those are 2 forms that come back to the World Affairs Council. By February 10th, your passport application is due. Lauren on our team will be providing a lot of support and guidance and written guides on how to complete that application process if you are selected to apply for your passport with the council paying. Within 2 weeks of receiving your acceptance notification from the experiment, there are 2 forms that will be due back to the experiment team. One is the conditions of participation, and one is an acknowledgement of risk form. By March 15th, you would need to return a health form that would be due back to the experiment. By May 1st, you have to show proof of full COVID vaccination. Between March and June, the council hosts those 3 pre-departure orientations and an online pre-departure course that is being designed now by our last cohort of global travel scholars. The dates are TBD, and they're usually planned in accordance with the scholars as a group and their availability. In May or in early June is when the experiment will host their program-specific pre-departure orientation. Post-travel, and again, I just want to emphasize that these are mandatory requirements of the Global Travel Scholars Program. So once the trip is over and the travel is done, that does not mean your expectations and the requirements of the program are finished. So there are still continued programming basically that takes place throughout the following school year after travel has happened. And during that time, students participate in a group project through the council. This year's group is doing the online course that will help to orientate our next group of scholars in traveling abroad. We also ask that students participate in a storytelling event to help share the new perspectives that they've gained and the transformative experience that they had in traveling abroad. So that's what we call the Welcome Home celebration. And prior to that, we have some planning sessions and rehearsals that students are required to participate in. During the pre-departure orientations, we do have an opportunity for past scholars to join us to help to inform the next cohort. So we ask that you all would be willing to do the same for the cohorts that would come after you. We ask that you serve as an ambassador of the council and a mentor for future scholars. So if asked to participate in programs or speak at events or with funders, we would appreciate if you would support the council in those ways. And then also to provide testimonials and reviews for the Global Travel Scholars Program and the experiment after your trips. And that helps us to continue to offer these programs and to advertise them to future students. So that's my part of the information. Angie has a bit more about the programs themselves and how they work. I just want to share here some points of contact. So Lauren Schola on our team will be sort of the main point of contact along with myself. And you can see our emails there. And on the experiment team, Angie and her colleague Heather are two people that you can reach out to should you have any questions that need to be answered about the programs or logistics of the programs that Lauren or I aren't able to answer. So with that, I am going to stop my screen share and turn it over to Angie, but I look forward to answering any questions you all may have at the end.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kathleen. So I just want to preface this by saying some of the material might sound repetitive, but it's very good because at least hearing it twice, it'll be stuck in our brains. So I'm just going to share my screen so you all can see. So as Kathleen stated, my name is Angie Afriye. I am the partnership coordinator, and I like to joke that that is just a fancy title for your assistant. I am the person that will be here to help you throughout this entire process. As Kathleen mentioned, with your you need from me, I am your go-to person along with Kathleen and also Lauren and Sean and everyone else as well, and my colleague Heather, as she mentioned. So I just want to give you a brief history about the experiment. So the experiment was started by Donald Watt. He led his first journey across the Atlantic to foster international peace and understanding, which he called the experiment. And again, that's very long-winded, but what he literally did was took a group of German students and brought them over to the United States to participate in homestay activities and to participate in immersion experiences in the US. And that kind of like led to the beginning of the experiment. They were in Vermont, which is where our main site is, where our graduate program is as well. And I'm not sure if many of you are familiar with the Peace Corps, but the Peace Corps founding director, Sergeant Shriver, was an early experimenter. And the Peace Corps, goes to different countries and provides services to individuals who need them as well. So the point of the experiment, the purpose, our main goal is to fill your purpose-driven passion. What you like to do and what you see for your future, we want to be part of that, and we want to provide you with an experience that allows you to do all of those things. Because fueling your future is important, but you can have fun and be safe while experimenting. So as Kathleen mentioned, this year we have 11 programs in 9 different countries. And if you take a look at the asterisk next to 2 countries, Ghana and Jordan, they are our college credit programs. So what that means is at the end of program, you will receive 3 college credits from the program in Ghana and from Jordan from our SIT school, which is our School in International Training, which is our graduate program. So you will be receiving college credit for those programs. We have 4 countries that we travel to in Europe: France, Germany, and Italy, Ecuador in the Americas, Ghana in Africa, Jordan in the Middle East, and Japan and South Korea in Asia and the Pacific. As mentioned, all of our programs have thematic components. So for our peace and politics and human rights, those are our Germany programs. So you'll be participating in political aspects of the program, human rights, peace building, international relations. Some of your activities will be centered around those things, visiting monumental buildings, speaking to individuals who, this is what they do for a living. This is their lifelong dreams to kind of study these things and focus on them. So that's what you'll be doing as well. We have language training, which is our Spanish language and culture, Japan, Japanese language and culture, and Jordan Arabic language and the Middle East as well. Our culture discovery and the arts, which is in Spain, one in France, Japan, anime and manga, Ghana, which is contemporary arts and culture, and once again, one of our college credit programs, and Italy, which is culinary training and culture, and last but certainly not least, Ecuador, which is our Galapagos Islands in the Andes. So the learning journey, the whole purpose of your experiment is, you're going to be in a collective, supportive, immersive, and experiential program. Collective, as Kathleen mentioned, you'll be traveling together as a group. You will all do things together as a group. It's seldom that you will be by yourself, so to speak. And we'll talk a bit more about that time frame in which you might be by yourself. And even then, you're not quite alone. Supportive, you'll have group leaders, in-country partners, homestay coordinators, in-country group leaders, a lot of support system while you're in country, but also from us while you're in country as part of our on-call team. You have, we'll talk a bit more about that at a later time period, but we also utilize International SOS, which provides medical care if you guys need it, mental health services while you're on program if you need it. So we try to provide you with a lot of support because this is fun, but a really big deal. Some of us have never traveled outside of our neighborhoods, and it can be quite scary being away from your friends, your family, doing something so awesome, but very, very new. Immersive, a lot of our programs, especially the language component programs, we want you to really hone in on your language skills. So you'll be participating in formal classes. You'll be doing activities that requires you to speak the language. You might in Spanish, who knows? We give a lot of opportunity for some immersive learning and also with their home stays as well. And then some experiential learning as well. So doing, especially in programs such as our Italy program, which will be, it's a culinary program. And by day one, you are chef. You get your chef hat, your coat, chef gas, and you're cooking, and you're in there, and you're doing exactly what it is that you need to be doing. So as I mentioned, we'll be traveling with group leaders, and our group leaders are trained, experienced teachers and professionals. Some of them come from social work backgrounds. Some of them are, principals, school support personnel. So very experienced individuals in the group leader pool. Their focus is on student health, safety, and well-being. So they are trained extensively to provide you all with the best support that they can provide you with. They go through, like I mentioned, the training right before program just to ensure that we are putting you in the most capable hands that we can find all across the globe. They are also focused on collective learning and experiential education, as I mentioned, and they also participate and help with program logistics and travel support. And what does that mean? They will help you get from point A to point B, such as we will as well, especially on travel day when it is chaotic and you are trying to figure out how to navigate JFK Airport. They are there for you. So as Kathleen mentioned, there's a few components to your program. As soon as you get to your international airport, program has started. So once you reach and you locate your group and you locate your group leaders, you are now officially on program. So you will meet your group leaders at your U.S. departure airport. So depending on what program you're going on, your airport might be different. For example, most of our European programs fly at JFK Airport. Some also fly out of Newark Airport, which is in New Jersey. Our Ecuador program flies out of Miami. Our Japan and South Korea program flies out of SFO or San Francisco. So depending on where you're going, we will let you know which airport it is you'll be going to. And when you arrive in country, you'll spend a few days in the capital or another major city. I am from Ghana, so I'm very biased to the Ghana program. So I will speak to that so a little bit more. So the capital of Ghana is Accra. So you will spend a few days in Accra exploring the city, meeting your in-country leaders if you have one, things of that nature as well. This is the time where you will increase your confidence and cultural knowledge. You'll be working on activities with your group leaders. They'll be teaching you some basics, how to greet people, how to ask for something if you need something in the local language, those types of things. And the next point speaks to that. So gaining some basic language skills as well, and learning local norms, like I said, greetings, personal space, meals, things of that nature. And you'll also be reviewing your health, safety, and security considerations. Sometimes things that we are accustomed to doing in the United States may not be something that is applicable somewhere else. So we want to make sure that we provide you with that information and that you are, adhering to their cultural norms, such as we would want someone to possibly adhere to ours if they were visiting us as well. Homestays. So fingers crossed. This summer, next summer, all of our programs have a homestay component except for Ghana. For the Ghana program, they will remain at the hotel for the duration of the program. Every other program has a homestay component, and we are very confident at this moment, and we are, crossing our fingers that it remains as such because this summer we only had a few. Homestays can be anywhere between 1 to 3 weeks. You'll participate in the daily life of your local community. The entire group participates in a homestay. So we don't just throw you all in a homestay and then your group leaders are just chilling and hanging out. No, 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 no. They have to participate as well in the homestay. So they will have their own host mom, their own host dad, siblings, possibly, pets, what have you, the whole 9 yards as well. You'll be participating in group get-togethers during your home stays, meeting, culture activities. There may be a festival that your community will be participating in that as well. And anything that your host family is doing, obviously within reason, you will also be participating in. If it's something that you are physically unable to do, or if it's a meal that you are allergic to, etc., there obviously, there is exceptions to that rule. But we really want you to be immersed in that experience and that part of it. We want you to be part of the family. So if your Saturday consists of just watching TV with your sister, your Saturday consists of watching TV with your sister. We had some really, really nice host families over the summer, and some of our participants got really, really lucky. They were backpacking across Europe, and I'm like, you got a 4-for-1 deal with this program right now. So the possibilities are quite endless with their homestay families. Our host families go through an extensive recruitment and vetting process. We have an in-country homestay coordinator who coordinates all of this for us, ensures that our families are, up to par, on board, can adhere to all of the world learnings, not even just the experiment, but the larger organizations, rules and regulations for being host families. They have to be fully vaccinated, just like we are asking you all to be fully vaccinated. If any of our students have allergies, they must adhere to those allergies, etc. Because although you are in their home, we also want you to feel comfortable. And hence why we also do ask you all to create a homestay letter that we can share, because we want them to get a glimpse as well and be comfortable. But we do vet them. Most of our host families have been hosting with us for years and years. I don't think we have any freshly new homestay families. So everyone is experienced and have expectations and know exactly what it is that they're supposed to be doing. So the program focus. So this is what we talked about a couple slides back. So whether it's language, whether it's the arts or culinary, things of that nature, is to fill your future. So we really want you to pick programs that align with exactly what it is that you maybe want to study in college, or if you're already thinking that far ahead into a career, or just what you're interested in at the moment but passionate about. We really want you to choose the programs rather that align with you and your goals. You are able to select up to 5 programs that you are interested in. And as Kathleen mentioned, we do ask that you are flexible, as you can be placed in any of those programs. Of course, we don't have our favorites, but we want you to be able to be like, okay, I got in this program, I'm still happy, I want to do the program, and you're all in. So again, it's for your future major or career, gain valuable experience and skills, earn college credit, and engage with local experts to deepen your understanding of critical global issues, especially like with our Germany program or South Korea. And let me actually go back. I know this is like study 100%. We want you to get the most experience, but we do allow time for you to explore the cities as well, right? What's a nice experience if you don't get to see more than what is on your itinerary and your day-to-day? You are given the opportunity to go with your members of your group. You have to travel in threes, but you are allowed to explore the cities as well. You are allowed to explore the cities with your group leaders, and we do, build time in for that to happen as well, because we want to make sure that you are getting everything out of the experience. And things that, when you go back and you think about your experience on the experiment, you're like, wow, this was really life-changing. How can I do this again? Or how can I incorporate this in my future learning, career, educational career, etc. So we went over this previously as well, but I will reiterate. So how to apply? You can get in contact with an admissions counselor, which is myself and another colleague at info@experiment.org. Kathleen also shared my personal email. Please feel free to email me. If you send 100 emails or one email, whichever gets your point across, please feel free to email me. I want to ensure that you are getting all the support that you need during this process. It is a very extensive process, and we don't want anyone to fall through the cracks because you're shy about asking a question or you feel like you're asking too many questions. Obviously, you can find some information on the website, etc., but sometimes everything isn't there. So please feel free to email me. As stated already, the application includes student and parent information, your short written essay questions, your homestay letter, and a photo. Please attach a personal photo to your homestay letter. It can be an individual photo of yourself, or it can be family, whichever. We want to help our host families put a face to the name as well. Letter of references. So depending on what program you choose, you may need one reference letter or two. Two, if you are interested in our college credit program in Ghana and Jordan. One for all the other programs. These have to come from a teacher and or advisor. You can have two teachers, two advisors, but as Kathleen mentioned, it cannot be from a family member. It cannot be from a friend. It cannot be from your barber, unfortunately. We want you to get them from a teacher, advisor, etc. If you are planning or have interest in any of the college credit programs, you also will need your high school transcript. It can be the current transcript. We understand not everyone has either graduated or in your senior year. That is totally fine. It is your current transcript that is needed, and your passport copy when you receive them. This is a very big one. When you receive your passports, please do not forget to sign them. Oftentimes, students forget to sign their passports, and then I have to email you and inform you that you didn't sign, and it is invalid if it is not signed. It can be signed by you. It does not have to be signed by your parent or guardian, or it can be signed by both. But just make sure that your passports are signed as well. And as Kathleen mentioned, your passport applications will be due in February. And the sooner, please make sure you meet that deadline. It is taking quite a while still for people to get their passports. So we want to make sure. Yes, Kathleen.
Sorry, Angie, I just want to chime in because I saw on the screen that it says they should apply for their passports now. And I just want to say for students applying, because you're applying through the Global Travel Scholars Program, if you are selected and when you would be selected to be a Global Travel Scholars, will help you apply for your passport and provide you with the check to do so. So in this particular instance, you should not apply until you would be selected and you were notified that you're selected, and then we'll inform you of how to go about applying for your passport. So just want to make that one note for this particular program.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So some health and safety guidelines. So we do have a 360 approach that focuses on mental, physical well-being of our participants. As I mentioned, while you are on program, our focus and everything is on your health, safety, and your well-being. So we will be providing you with services while you're on program. If you scrape your knee, if you bump your finger, let us know. We want to make sure that you are okay. If you feel like you need mental health services while on program, please let your group leaders know as well, and we can provide those services as well. We provide insurance coverage for any accidents, any illness, any emergency evacuation that happens while on program. And COVID is still, running rampant. So we want to be updated as best as possible. So we will continue to follow the CDC guidelines. We are updating our COVID protocols in the spring based on CDC and WHO and local government recommendations. So things might change. But as of right now, we require, and the Global Scholars as well, requires COVID vaccination in order to travel with us. And this is a bit more information. I know I can tell you about our programs all day. It sounds good from like, you just worked for the experiment, you want us to travel. Nothing beats talking to someone that has actually experienced, that actually went through this. So you can 100% reach out to an alumni ambassador on our website. Your parent can reach out to a parent ambassador as well. If you visit our website and you go to the Apply tab, there is a drop down and it says contact the former ambassador. You and your parent can reach out to a student, a parent, and ask all the questions that you feel necessary to ask. And someone will reach back out to you and answer your questions. We do have some upcoming virtual information sessions, as Kathleen mentioned, for your departure orientations that you must attend. We just want to make sure you are as prepared as possible. And once again, you can feel free to reach out to the admissions counselor, myself at info@schola.org, or via telephone. Last but certainly not least, if you forget anything, don't forget this part. This is very, very, very important. Don't forget anything, but this part is very important. When you are applying for the experiment, after you put in your name and all those fun things to get your application started, the next page will be program selection. It's going to ask you if you were nominated to apply by a sponsoring organization, mentor, or go high school, and you will say yes. You will then go in to the drop down, which is you choosing which organization that was, and you will put in World Affairs of Pittsburgh as the organization. And I do believe it says that. Please make sure that you do that. That lets us know that you are from the Global Scholars, and we can, all the logistical background things that need to happen can happen. But it is very, very, very imperative that you do indicate what program you are coming from. So if you have any questions, if you forget what the option is or what you should put in there, definitely reach out to me and I will let you know 100%. But this part is very important. And then, as I mentioned, you will also be able to select your programs. So these were just some examples, but you are able to select up to 5 programs that you are interested in. And then you continue the application. So your application information, the essay questions, the home state component, your references, et cetera, et cetera. And then you submit the application. Once your application is submitted, the default status is incomplete application. We are working to change that because it drives me crazy and it's very confusing. It'll change to incomplete application. That does not mean your application is incomplete. I just have to manually go in there and make sure that you ticked all of the boxes. If your status changes to complete, it'll confuse me and whoever else is reviewing will say, oh, it's finished. But we're working on changing it to submitted. I feel like that makes a lot more sense than an incomplete application. But again, if you get the incomplete, notification, it does not mean it's incomplete. It just means I have to manually go in and make sure you have submitted all the required documents. Ensure that if you are missing anything, I'm reaching out to you. So that would be the default.
Thanks, Angie. I think you cut out just a little bit at the end there, but I think you said you're finished, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Lori, can you hear me? Okay, Lauren, can you hear me just to confirm? Okay, the audio is great. Okay, perfect. Great. So now's our chance to open up to any questions that students, parents, educators on the call might have. Feel free to either unmute and ask your question, or you can put it in the chat. And I know that there's about 5 minutes left to this, 5 minutes left on the session. I'm happy to stay on a little bit longer if there are questions or personalized questions that you would like to ask. But does anyone have a question? Do we choose 2 people from each school? No. So there is a small number of scholarships that are available that's based on funding each year. That number changes. Last year we sent 12 students abroad. This year it will be slightly less than 12. And we typically will select 1 or a maximum of 2 students from a school in the area, but we don't select students from every school that applies. It's just based on the number of scholarships available and who are the best applicants. And by best, I mean who makes the most compelling case for how they would benefit and who has the financial need. A sophomore who is turning 16 in March, is that person eligible? Allison, if you send me an email and I'll put my email in the chat, I think that's something that we can talk about. The 16 requirement is because of the passport timeline and application. So it depends on when the birthday is in March. But I will put my email in there, and if you send me an email with your child's exact birth date, I can look into that and get back to you. Oh, he has, okay. Yeah, cool. I will say if somebody has a valid passport, it is important for us to know typically if you have a passport, it's because you've traveled abroad before. So just make sure that you're not excluded out based on the ineligibility of past international travel outside of the US or Canada. But if he has a passport, Allison, most likely the answer is yes, he should still be eligible then to apply if he's a current sophomore. Thanks. Anyone else? I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Actually, before I do that, I should say thank you all for attending, and to anyone who is watching the recorded part, or if you receive this afterwards, myself, Lauren, Sean, E&G, we're all here to support you and answer questions that may arise as you're going through the application process or as you're selected for the interview. We send out a lot of reminder emails in this process with links to the information that you need, and try to make sure that you have all of that available to you in writing and an email. So after this is over, you will receive the recording, a link to the slides. Those will also be posted on our website, so you can find them there as a reference point with our emails in them as well. So thank you so much for the time and your interest in applying for the Global Travel Scholars Program, and we do hope to hear from you soon.